Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating 17th century play.
Oh, cool.
It's called A Jovial Crew, or The Merry Beggars.
Interesting title.
Yeah, it's a comedy, but it tackles a topic you might not expect.
Okay.
Beggars.
Beggars in a comedy.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's a bit of an unexpected combination, especially for 1641 England.
Right.
Like, wasn't that a time of huge social and political upheaval?
Exactly. Like the country was on the verge of civil war.
So not exactly lighthearted times.
Nope, not at all, but that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Okay.
I'm intrigued. So the play revolves around this wealthy landowner named Oldrins,
Okay.
and he's totally obsessed with this prophecy
Oh.
that his daughters are going to become beggars.
Wow. Talk about a downer.
Right, like can you imagine having that hanging over your head?
Yikes. And this is the guy at the top of the social hierarchy, right?
Yeah, he's got land, money, the whole 9 yards.
It makes you wonder what it says about that society, that even someone like him is so afraid of falling to the bottom.
It's like this underlying anxiety about the fragility of their world.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we have this prophecy and this anxious rich guy.
Got it.
Now let's introduce the other side of the coin. His steward, Springlove.
Okay.
Well, Springlove actually used to be a beggar himself.
Interesting.
Yeah, Aldrins took him in out of kindness years ago.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
Springlove secretly longs for that old life back on the road.
He misses being a beggar.
He misses the freedom of it. Yeah.
Wow, that's like a total rejection of everything Aldrin stands for.
Exactly. And it's like the play is asking us to question what we value. Like, what if the people we think are at the bottom are actually happier?
Interesting point.
And what if those at the top are secretly miserable?
Yeah, it makes you think.
Okay, so then we have Aldrin's daughters, Mariel and Rachel.
The potential beggars.
Well, that's what their dad's worried about. But these girls are not your typical obedient daughters.
Oh.
No, they're actually fascinated by the beggars they see around them.
Then why would they be drawn to that lifestyle?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the opposite of everything they've been taught to value.
Right. But the play presents these beggars in a really interesting light.
How so?
They're not portrayed as miserable or desperate. Instead, they're joyful and resourceful, and they have this strong sense of community.
So the play is romanticizing the beggar life a bit.
Definitely. It's like they're saying, hey, we may not have much, but we have freedom and each other.
I wonder how realistic that is.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like how much of this is a romanticized ideal versus the actual reality of 17th century poverty.
Good point.
But it's within this tension that the daughters decide to take a big risk.
Oh, what do?
They decide to experience beggary firsthand.
They run away.
They do. They run away from their comfortable lives, disguised as beggars, with Springlove as their guide.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It is. And you can bet they're in for a rude awakening.
I can imagine.
Like their initial excitement fades pretty quickly when they encounter the real hardships of life on the road.
Yeah, the hunger, the uncomfortable lodgings, the constant need to beg for food.
It's a far cry from the romanticized songs and carefree dances they witnessed from afar.
So their little experiment backfires.
It does, but their adventure isn't the only story unfolding here.
Oh, what else is going on? Well, remember that social and political tension we talked about?
Yeah, England on the brink of civil war.
Right. Well, that tension spills into the play through another storyline.
Okay.
A runaway lover's plot.
Ooh, juicy. Tell me more.
So one of the suitors, Martin, decides to elope with his master's niece, Amy.
To avoid a forced marriage or something.
Exactly. It seems like everyone's trying to escape some form of constraint in this play.
So we have runaway daughters, runaway lovers, a society about to explode. What else could possibly happen?
Well, that's where Justice Clack comes in.
Who is that? He's this larger-than-life authority figure who stumbles onto the scene when the apprehended beggars.
Including our disguised protagonists.
You got it. They're brought before him.
Oh, boy.
Well, Justice Clack is quite a character.
I bet.
He's known for his love of sack. That's wine, by the way. And his long-winded speeches. But he's more than just comic relief.
In what way?
He represents the rigid legal system of the time, blindly upholding laws without much regard for individual circumstances.
So he's like a satirical representation of authority.
Exactly. And his eventual softening toward the beggars hints at a potential for change within that seemingly inflexible system.
Interesting.
But just when you think you've got it all figured out, the play throws in another twist.
Really? What happens?
Patrico, the leader of the beggars and a fortune teller, reveals a secret that changes everything.
Oh, so now I have to wait to find out what it is.
You'll have to stay tuned for the next part of our deep dive to hear the big reveal. So we left off with this crazy mix of runaway daughters, runaway lovers, and a society on the brink.
Oh, yeah. It's all coming to a head.
And then there's Justice Clack, this larger-than-life authority figure who's a bit of a buffoon but also represents something deeper.
He's definitely more than just comic relief.
Right, like when we laugh at his eccentricities, we're also laughing at the absurdity of the system he represents.
It's a clever way to critique authority without being too heavy-handed.
Absolutely. But going back to the daughters for a second,
Yeah, what about them?
their whole experience as beggars, how do you think that challenges play's romantic portrayal of poverty?
I think it exposes the gap between the idealized image of the merry beggar and the harsh realities of that life.
Right, like they were looking for freedom, but they ended up finding a different kind of constraint.
The constant struggle for basic needs.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what true freedom actually looks like.
Is it about escaping all responsibility? Or is it something more?
Yeah, good question. And it's something that we still grapple with today.
Totally. Like, we might romanticize certain lifestyles, but we often forget about the challenges that come with them.
It's like we need that reminder that there's no such thing as a perfect escape.
Right. Every choice has its trade-offs.
And it's not just the daughters who are wrestling with these questions.
Oh, yeah. What about the runaway lovers?
Martin and Amy, their story adds another layer to this whole idea of societal expectations versus individual desires.
Their elopement is like a big middle finger to the establishment.
It is. And then you have Amy choosing to join the beggar crew.
Even though she wasn't forced into poverty.
Exactly. It's like she sees something appealing in that lifestyle, something that's missing from her own privileged world.
Maybe it's this sense of community or the rejection of material wealth.
It's a powerful statement about where we find meaning and happiness.
Yeah, it challenges our assumptions about what a good life looks like.
Speaking of meaning and happiness, we can't forget about the music in this play.
Those beggar songs are so catchy.
And they're more than just entertainment, they're a form of social commentary.
They express the beggar's unique perspective on life and freedom.
Like that line, "Our bellies are full, our flesh is warm, and against pride our rags are a charm."
It's a powerful declaration of contentment and self-sufficiency.
Makes you think about what truly matters in life.
Right. Do we really need all the stuff we think we do?
What could we find happiness in simpler ways?
I think that's the core question the play is asking.
It's a question that's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
But before we get too philosophical, let's not forget that this is a comedy.
Right. We're supposed to be having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the play does a great job of balancing social commentary with humor.
Like Justice Clack. He's hilarious.
He is. And those absurd situations and witty dialogues keep things light even when the play is tackling some pretty serious themes.
It's a clever way to engage the audience and make them think.
So to recap, we have runaway daughters, runaway lovers, a society on the verge of change, and a play that's both funny and thought-provoking.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And
Yeah.
just when you think you've got it all figured out, Patrico drops that bombshell secret.
The one that changes everything.
And to find out what happens, you'll have to join us for the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so we're back for the final act of A Jovial Crew. And that secret, Patrico revealed.
It's a big one.
Dive it! Throw it on me.
All right, so it turns out Patrico isn't actually a beggar. He's a nobleman.
What?
Yeah. He chose this life. He gave up his wealth and status to live among the beggars.
Whoa, that's a twist.
It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about these characters.
Right, like maybe they're not all victims of circumstance.
Exactly. Some of them might actually prefer this life.
It's like the play is saying there's more to people than meets the eye.
Absolutely. But that's not all Patrico revealed.
There's more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He also drops the bombshell that Spring left.
Uldren's steward?
The one and only is actually Uldren's long-lost son.
No way. So the prophecy wasn't about his daughters becoming beggars at all?
Nope. It was about his son already being one.
The irony is amazing.
It really is. Uldren was so afraid of his daughters falling from grace. But his own son was already living the life he dreaded,
It's like the play is poking fun at those in power.
showing how their fears and assumptions can blind them to the truth.
But this revelation doesn't just turn the story upside down, it also changes everything for the characters.
For sure. Like for Uldren, finding his son brings him so much joy.
It's like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders.
Exactly. He's not fixated on the prophecy anymore. He's focused on building a relationship with his son.
That's beautiful. And what about Springlove? How does he handle this news?
Well, at first he's a little hesitant,
Makes sense. He's spent years yearning for this life of freedom.
and now he's being pulled back into the world of wealth and obligation.
It's a tough decision.
It is. But in the end, he accepts his father's love and embraces his family.
And this reconciliation has a ripple effect on everyone else, too.
Oh yeah, even Justice Clack is transformed.
You mean the stern judge with a fondness for sack?
That's the one.
Hmm.
He actually softens his stance on the beggars.
Really?
Yeah, he starts to see them as human beings, and he even sanctions the marriage between Amy and Springlove.
Wow, that's a huge shift.
It is. It's like the whole social order is being challenged and redefined.
It's a pretty radical message for a 17th century play.
It is. But it speaks to the play's enduring power. It makes us question our own assumptions about social class, what it means to be happy.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into A Jovial Crew, what do you think is the main takeaway for us today?
Well, I think the play reminds us that true happiness isn't about following the rules or chasing wealth and status,
It's about finding those genuine connections,
and having the freedom to choose our own path.
even if that path leads us somewhere unexpected.
Exactly. Sometimes the things we fear the most can actually lead us to a more fulfilling life.
It's a powerful message and one that's worth reflecting on. So as you go about your day, maybe think about where you find true joy and connection, and don't be afraid to embrace the unexpected turns that life throws your way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those unexpected treasures that life has to offer.